Hey, it's Drybear. We just got done with a long theory crafting session improving our resources and our spreadsheet for the First Descendant. And the first weapon to test out this more exacerbated system for testing out DPS and best modules is going to be Eternal Willpower, a very unique and also very powerful assault rifle. Now, with this new setup, I'm able to calculate the theoretical DPS when fully maxed out with all mods and all increases, catalysts, enhancements, that sort of thing. And I'm also, because people have asked many times, they put up a reroll priority as well. You notice that I had stat priority on my previous videos covering those specific weapons. So I've moved the stat priority up here to the top right and included more modules and the overall weight that they have for the weapon as a build up here in the top right. But because the stat priority is not a one-to-one with a reroll, most of your stats can appear on the reroll, but not all of them. Like, for example, fire rate can't be re-rolled on the weapon enhancement. I've put up a re-roll stat weighting on the top right corner of the screen here for this image, that you can see which of these stats are better. So ideally, your best roll for Eternal Willpower would be a firearm attack, bonus versus Colossi most likely, crit damage, and then flat elemental damage would be your biggest gain. But if you didn't want to keep re-rolling forever, this would help you decide which of these stats would be worth the most if you kind of get a good roll, like all 4 golds on something to line that up. So I've included that in the top right corner, the theoretical DPS. We can start comparing the weapons next to each other as we do more of these videos. And I put a core build for this weapon overall. But I went through and updated my build calc. So on this, like, this is becoming my super sheet for the First Descendant. I'll have it down in the description if you want, as well as the image for the Eternal Willpower as a build overall. So you find that link down in the description and in the comments. But I went through and built a very robust system that calculates per module what the overall difference would be, so we can see what the change is overall. Not only is this useful for seeing how the modules compare together, but it's also useful for the modules that are what's called Kiss Curse or plus minus, right? So for example, Slow Art, which has a minus to fire rate but an increase to firearm attack, what is the overall percent gain for a module like that and how it can do it? And this is going to help me speed up my process for that as well. I've also included at the top a global scaler for how accurate you are against weak points, just so we can see as you become less and less skillful at hitting weak points, right? If we set this down to like 2%, like only 2% of the time you're hitting the weak point, that will change the priority for which modules work for you. And I've kind of just set it between a value of like 30 to 50% for the average player that might be hitting it. And you can also set it to 100% if you like, to see what would happen if you hit weak point with every shot, which is theoretical, but not realistic for any person in the world, no matter how good you actually are. So this is the stat weighting and the module weighting. Now keep in mind that on the left side of the screen, I have done this as a global weighting of how much each of these modules will provide based on the weapon. You'll even notice things like elemental focus has been greatly diminished, and because it's scaled by your amount of rounds in a single magazine. When you stop firing and you reload, you lose all stacks on mental focus and it resets. So this is going to be a number that changes by the weapon type, the amount of rounds it has, the stats of that weapon, and this is going to be the best overall. However, a couple takeaways for the Eternal Willpower that is kind of interesting relative to maybe the pinpoint ARs or even the 2 other ultimate ARs like Fallen Hope that you might look at here is primarily this weapon has a good enough crit chance base that it loses a lot of value in adding crit chance versus other stats, which is going to be a little bit kind of backwards for some people. It sounds like that's not the case, but when you go in and actually do the math, because the crit chance is high enough, you get far more value by adding base damage that would scale off of that crit and crit damage that would make that crit bigger, rather than trying to scale up the crit chance with the opportunity cost of expending. So the final build that I would recommend for Eternal Willpower is to run Rifling Reinforcement with Action Reaction. This gives you your 2 firearm attack scalars, your best stat for this weapon. Then run Weak Point Sight and have Aiming, 2 weak point scalars. In this case, weak point isn't as strong as it would be with some other weapons, but it's still very, very good. We're going to run with that. Our one special mod, since you can only have 1 yellow mod on the weapon, is going to be Real Life Fighter, because if you can manage to keep this stacked, it is still one of the best, if not the best mod in the game. However, I've included other special mods in here if you don't like trying to stack up Real Life Fighter onto weak point. So if you feel like you don't have good accuracy, and by the way, this is even with a 50% accuracy on weak point, losing stacks, it's not counting full uptime on Real Life Fighter. Fighter. Real Life Fighter is just that good. If you wanted to, the next best special option would be Sharp Precision Shot. You're not going to be able to stack this up permanently either, but you will be able to stack it enough for it to have decent value. So this is the one that is based on the amount of like length of time that you shoot. You're not going to get like your full stacks on it because you need about 5 seconds of time to empty in order to get full stacks on that. Machine guns are better at that for that sort of thing. But if you wanted to run Sharp Precision Shot or even Sweeping Squad in replacement of Real Life Fighter, you could. You could even run without a special mod because a lot of these special mods start to fall off in value. The next interesting discovery about this this math session for Eternal Willpower is that it actually does scale really, really well with the elemental enhancement mods. So these are the blue mods down here in the bottom right that will add an elemental bonus based on your firearm attack. So there's toxic, fire, chill, and toxic. And chill, and fire, and the other one, electric. So you have those that you can stack up bonus damage, but it doesn't scale as well with getting the like the gun barrel, the priority, or even a conductor to raise damage based on status effect or the element itself. This weapon specifically does great with just a single elemental mod and no more. You don't need a gun barrel, you don't need a conductor, you don't need a chill priority on top of it, just one, which is great. It means that you can actually forma or catalyze the other 9 slots and then just swap in whatever element you need for that specific fight, which makes it a very flexible weapon overall. So we're going to run in with just the blue elemental for this bonus. It's going to give you a very nice 39% increase on your overall effective DPS. Just that, don't need to run more. And then we're going to run with some crit damage. Because we have high enough crit chance, we don't want to run through the gambit of expending our opportunity cost on mods, scaling up the multiplicative scaler on crit chance. We have enough crit chance and enough fire rate to get the damage we need from that. We just want to make the crit damage bigger when we do crit. So we're going to get better concentration and concentration priority because crit damage has a much higher weighting for this weapon specifically. And then we get 1 fire rate mod. Fire rate is one of the global scalars. It applies full value to the weapon. And in this case, we want one of them with fire rate up. So all of these 10 mods put together with the right element hitting a target that is weak to that element, which gives you a 33% bonus in damage output, will give you a theoretical DPS of 748,000 on sheet. And this is not like that sheet's not going to include the elemental, by the way. So your sheet will probably be like 690, 700k, something like that. And that's when it's fully maxed out and fully valued. So that is the Eternal Willpower. Excellent accuracy, great crit scaling and crit damage scaling. And unlike the other assault rifles that don't have the base crit that Eternal Willpower does, they wouldn't be focusing on crit damage at all, and they may be running some different options here for scaling up Real Life Fighter with accuracy and that sort of thing. Trying to get, instead of trying to increase your crit value and your crit return, you instead try to make sure that you keep higher uptime on Real Life Fighter for those 4 other assault rifles like Phantom Pain, that sort of thing, get a lot better. And of course, expand weapon charge is also really good because rounds are a big part of the calculation for weapons like these. Your reload time and your rounds will make a big difference on some weapons. For this weapon specifically, it has a decent enough reload time. It's actually, I think, the slowest, if not one of the slowest reload times for an assault rifle, but it's still much faster than, say, like a sniper rifle or a machine gun. So it's just enough where expand weapon charge outperforms recycling genius by a little bit. So you want to get more max rounds so that you can keep hammering and keeping stacks up on things rather than having to worry about faster reload. But this is the optimal setup for Eternal Willpower and the stats you get. I have this sheet down below in the comments and in the description, so you can reference it, you know, pin it in your Discord, tag it, and we'll start moving on to the weapons. But this is going to be fun because we'll be able to test to see what the theoretical DPS would be for each of the weapons to see how they stack up, and then we can kind of circle back and do a comparison for all the weapons to see which ones are actually the strongest. But of course, let me know what we should cover next down below in the comments. If you found value in today's video, leave a like down below, leave a comment for the algorithm to help this video get seen by more people, and don't forget to check out my other channels for other content and other stuff and other things.